It's time for Voice of Indie. Your hosts today are Beam Weeks, author, producer, and marketing monster for independent multimedia publisher Fresh Ink Group, and Stephen Gees, author, producer, composer, and publisher for Fresh Ink Group.
Hey, greetings, everybody. Welcome to the Voice of Indie podcast, show number 62. I am your host tonight, Beam Weeks, and Stephen Gees is off tonight. He is chasing the 1960s. He's going to see the Monkees on their farewell tour tonight. So rock on and be a daydream believer. All right, listen, everybody. If you're a music fan or a writer, whatever, tonight, get involved. Hashtag Fresh Ink Group on Twitter. Go over there and put that hashtag in your tweets, and I will see it if you have a question or a comment for tonight's guest. Hashtag Fresh Ink Group. Or, if you're brave, pick up the phone. Call 515-453-9902. Oh, I'm sorry, it's 516. I got a typo here. 516-453-9902. Once again, that is 516-453-9902. And call in with your questions or your comments. We are taking calls all night long. We have a few things here. C.S. Boyack, you guys might remember. He was on the show here a few weeks back. Tonight is or actually it was yesterday, was the start of his freebies. His book, The Hat, is free between October 5th and October 7th. So get over there right now and grab a copy. Who doesn't like free? Come on. His book, The Ballad of Mrs. Maloney, is free from October 19th through the 21st. So keep that in mind. Mark your calendar. Now, most people might not know this name. Lee Wanakat. He was a pioneer in live streaming over the internet, which is what we do with this show right here. He's passed away. Lee and our good friend Verwayne Greenhoe were among the first to utilize live streaming back in 1998. The early days of the internet. Our condolences to Lee's family and his friends. Legacy of Danger by Patricia A. Guthrie is now available for pre-sale at Amazon. The release date is October 31st. I went over there and grabbed a copy through pre-sale myself this afternoon, so get over there and check that out. It's a really good book. I've already read it. I did the editing on it, and it's an excellent story, so get over there and grab a copy. Congratulations to author Robert G. Williscroft, along with Alistair Mayer, on a successful outing at the Mile High Con. Robert's book is a potential Prometheus Award nominee, so good luck with that one, Robert. Keep us in the loop with how that goes. If you guys want a free ebook, go to the Fresh Ink Group website and let us know by using the contact form. This month, we're giving away copies of Karen Engel's new release, Learning About Autism. You might recall we had her on the show a while back talking about this very book. And please remember to leave a review after you've read this book. Reviews are vital to us authors. Anybody out there in the audience, you're a writer, you know. It's not for our own ego. It lets other people know what this book, if it's worthy to be read, if it's worthy to be purchased. So make sure you leave those reviews. And I am pleased and humbled to announce that I have been invited to be a member of the Story Empire Authors Club. This is a true honor to be involved with this incredible collection of talented writers and bloggers. I will make my official debut in January. Go see what they're up to at storyempire.wordpress.com. That's storyempire.wordpress.com. It's a really cool site, and a lot of great talented authors over there. Many of them are friends of this program, and go over there and check that out. Now, on to tonight's show. Brooke Krieger found his first guitar in the trash outside of an abandoned house. He loved playing so much, he joined several bands and toured around the U.S. from ages 16 to 33. He loves to write, record, and play music, and will do it until he's no longer able to breathe. He loves the outdoors and hiking through the mountains in his current home in Arizona. He also enjoys relaxing with his cat Peeper. And with that, welcome to the show, Brooke. How you doing?
Beam, man, it's good to hear from you and talk with you. And congratulations on your Story Empire group.
Well,
that's
thank
really
you.
Cool.
I appreciate it. So we'll right off the bat, we'll let everybody know Brooke is my cousin, and we've
what? When did that happen? I'm just kidding.
But we grew up pretty much like brothers. I mean, we were always together back in the day. So now
listening to all the same music and rocking out with our cassette tapes in our car. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So where are you originally from, Brooke?
I'm from Lansing. I was born and raised in
Michigan.
Lansing, Michigan. You know what? The funny thing is, I looked that up. There's other Lansing, so you do have to say Lansing. So.
That's why you want to say
I didn't
Lansing,
know that, you know.
because we're worldwide.
Yeah. So yeah, I grew up there, and my dad was a factory worker, and my mom was, worked at MSU. So I love Michigan. I go back there and visit, and go Sparties. I'm kidding. I'm a Walmart fan.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm going both ways.
So now you've also lived other places. Where else have you lived besides Lansing, Michigan?
Well, when you're touring with certain acts and stuff, a lot of times you live in the hotels, but a lot of times you'll be stationed or like a standard place where you can all meet. So I've lived like in Toledo, Ohio, Covington, Kentucky, which is south of Cincinnati, just across the river there. I lived in Minnesota for a long, long time. I went there and went to school. I lived there for like 23 years. But, yeah, so I've lived in quite a few places and visited a lot. Man, I've traveled a lot of different places. But, yeah.
So where
I haven't lived
now?
anywhere like – I'm living in Arizona. I love Phoenix, Arizona. I love the weather. And it's just really, really nice down here. It's like if you like the heat, that's great because you can stay in the valley. But if you're like, oh, man, I got to get a break, you just go up to, north to Flagstaff or Prescott. Man, it's just beautiful. It's like Michigan in the summer or spring. It's beautiful. So
cool.
I enjoy it a lot.
We do have a couple of comments here on Twitter to start the show off. Verwayne Greenhoe, he said, have fun tonight. Stephen G, I grew up with the Monkees. I love that upbeat music. Me too. Still love the Monkees. I've got a greatest hits that's got pretty much everything on it that you could want from the Monkees.
All I can say on that is, I'm a believer.
And Dr. Helen Burrell says, hello, fellow authors. I present Brooke Krieger, obviously both a talented musician and gifted writer. I'm here enjoying this interview. Dr. Helen, she's a writer. She's got some books through Fresh Ink Group, and she is a faithful and loyal listener in the audience, as is the aforementioned Verwayne Greenhoe. She even put your website address in that tweet, so people can go over there and check that out. And Verwayne Greenhoe says, congrats. He says, congrats, Beam, for the Story Empire. Thank you, Verwayne. Appreciate that. Now, Brooke, what kind of kid were you? Did you get good grades? Were you a troublemaker?
I was terrible, man. We grew up, so.
Yeah.
I did really well, like in mathematics, and I liked science, but I didn't do well in school. Social studies and this whole school thing was just kind of goofy for me, and the home life wasn't all that great. So I got into playing with bands very, very early. Like when I was 15,
we'll get to that. We'll get to the band stuff here in just a second.
But I just wanted to, that. So when I was growing up, I wasn't a great kid, but that's why I got into the band stuff, because usually that's what the bad kids do, right? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But actually, so I wasn't really good in school and all that stuff, but I was really smart. I loved art, and I always liked music, So, yeah. Now,
I touched on it in your bio, how you found the guitar in the trash. How did you start playing guitar? What's the story there? After finding the guitar?
After I found that guitar, I know I saw that. My grandfather, grandfather,
yeah.
Grandpa Weeks used to play.
Grandpa Weeks.
And he used to play guitar in the church, and he was the musical director, and we used to just watch him. One day I was walking past this old house, man. I saw this guitar. It's a Gibson. Out of all the guitars, there was a Gibson. The headstock was popping. I said, wow, man, check that out. I was just excited to see it, And it was all broken up into little pieces, and I brought it to Grandpa because he's a luthier. And I had him fix it up for me, and it turned out to be a really good guitar. And so I just got hooked from that minute. I mean, I just got lost in it. Music's kind of a great escape. Some people will do video games nowadays, or you'll sing, or some people work out and do sports, but music was my outlet for that.
Yeah. So, guitar lessons. How did you hone your skills?
Well, I first started taking lessons from my grandfather, and I'd play in the church and learn all your E, F, G, C, and all. I
remember those Sunday nights at church, and you'd be up there with Grandpa playing. That was kind of always interesting.
It was fun. I was so nervous. I remember going to those gigs and like, oh my God, I'm so nervous, and I get up there and play, and then you get bit by this. It's almost like an addiction, and you're just like, wow, that was so fun. But I really wanted to. My heart was into rock.
Yeah.
That's just what I was into. That's what I listened to when I was, that age. Metal and, Ozzy and Black Sabbath and all that. So I took lessons from a guy named Mike Rockstead there. And is it Marshall Music? I think they're still down there in Lansing.
Yeah, Marshall Music still there. Been there since the 1920s.
Yeah. Oh, my gosh, that place is rocking. And there's a Guitar Center right next to it, which is funny, but they're still killing it. So. But Mike Rockstead was this guy, and he was like this, I think he was an MSU music major guy, and he was a fantastic teacher. He was so interesting, and he just would take you into different levels, and he taught me the church modes, which is a scale, the scales up and down the neck, and then he just taught me a lot of he was really my foundation to start my journey on this, this huge music fest, we'll call it. So, but he was really a good inspiration too. And then I actually studied with a classical guy from MSU named Dave Smith, and he was kind of a bigwig back in those days. I don't know how famous or anything, but he was really good. But he was really strict, and so I got a lot of my how to play and how to to really get down to the nitty gritty of stuff. Because when you're classically trained, you have to sit a certain way, your wrist has to be a certain way, and he was really picky. And I can tell you that when I went to the lessons with him, it wasn't as exciting as it was with Mike Rockstead, but it was really worth every minute that I spent with him, because you need that. You need that, that discipline. You really taught me discipline.
Doing it the right way.
Mike was a rock guy. Hence his name, like Rockstead. Who has a name like Rockstead? That's so awesome.
Rock City.
That's right. And he played this cool Les Paul. He was just a cool guy. But Dave Smith, the classical guy, he really showed me the disciplines of music and where you need to be, so that I was afraid I would practice when I went there. So that's really what I needed, because I was a rebellious kid at that time.
Yeah, we all were. Yeah, I know we were rebellious together for quite often for many years.
Oh yeah.
Now. You're starting to play guitar. You're graduating from the playing up there with the church. So what were some of your first bands that you played in?
That's a good question. No, I'm kidding. I remember. So actually, some of the first bands I played with, that was because I was in the church. So after I started taking lessons, I wasn't playing in the church as much, and I really got bit by that bug. I wanted to be in front of an audience. And I was sitting in class one day. It was like 6th or 7th grade, and my buddy Mark Peterson, he was in there, and he says, "Hey, dude, I heard you played in a band." I had long hair and the parachute jacket, and looking all like I played in a band or something. He's like, "I heard you play guitar, man. My uncle Dino's got a band. They're called Wayward Storm." I was like, "Wow, really?" I said, "That would be cool." And I went over there and took jam with them, and I was like hooked. I got in the band. It was like a classic rock band. We did a lot of Jimi Hendrix, and we did some Leonard Skinner, and man, I
remember you guys doing the Leonard Skinners.
Yeah. So we did a lot of really cool stuff in that band. That was really fun. Chuck Green and he was the bass player. He was a really good friend of mine, and we did a lot of side projects too, because back in those days, if you weren't playing the bar, a lot of people would have parties at their house, or some people would have farms, and they'd set us up in the backyard, and oh my God, the mosquitoes were horrible, because they love those lights, those power cans, when they're turned on in Michigan in the summer. Oh. But yeah, I remember doing that. It was fun. That was one of my first bands. And then I just kind of drifted on to different bands, through going to school. But the Wayward Storm was really the one that took it out to the clubs. It was, I got into the band, I was 14, 15 years old. I'm playing these clubs. And, I remember it couldn't even, you couldn't drink, and they had special rules for you and all this stuff.
We're going to touch on that. I got that down here on the list. So just kind of stick with the bands right now.
Sure.
The whole playing in the bars thing, I got that set up coming up here shortly. Trying to follow this through because I got this set up in a way that we're gonna absorb everything. Now,
so I was gonna say the bands that I got in with after Wayward Storm, and we were playing out. That was really fun, but it just wasn't my genre of music. So about a year or so down the line, came to the Silver Dollar, called Le Rouge, which means in French it means the red. So their whole stage was like red grid and red lights and red. Everything was red. So that was like the next band that I got into that really was going to go and do something.
And for those who don't know, which if you're not from this area, from the Lansing, Michigan area, the Silver Dollar Saloon was the marquee rock and heavy metal club. I mean, everybody played there when they started out. Aerosmith, Rush, Kiss, Cheap Trick, REO Speedwagon.
Everybody was.
And then all through the 80s, it was, these metal bands, and it was the 80s. It was Big Hair. It was, just an incredible time. Now, you had talked about, that wasn't your type of music with Wayward Storm. That was kind of the classic rock stuff.
Classic rock, yeah.
Who are your influences as a guitar player that motivated you to move on to other genres, I should say?
Well, there's nothing wrong with like the classic rock stuff. I really like playing that stuff, and so I don't mean to be like, oh, that wasn't my thing, but it just at that time, metal was kind of big. So like I was into Rush and Deep Purple, and Deep Purple was kind of like on this new thing, and they were doing some cool stuff, and Van Halen and Ozzy and stuff like that. I was really digging on that kind of stuff. And so God, man, I remember so many, remember Deep Purple came out with that, I don't remember the song now, but man, they came out with this new album and we were playing that stuff. And
that was the one really that had Perfect Strangers, wasn't
Perfect
it?
Strangers. That's what I was thinking, Perfect Strangers. So that one was, so I was really getting into that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of really good bands. Like Metallica had some really cool stuff. They were early in the game. And then there was just like Dokken. Oh my gosh, I remember just loving George Lynch, man. He is like the coolest
stellar guitar player, yeah.
Flipping good, man. I used to just love that kind of stuff. So and then I really liked Ozzy and like all the other, the standards, so to speak.
Well, who were some of your favorite guitar players that kind of
that's a really good question because as you like, guitar players like come and go from the decades. But my first love was, the guy was just like, man, this guy he's playing to me. I can feel it in my heart. This is a really good guitar player. It was Randy Rhodes. I mean, when I first heard him, he was Randy Rhodes from Ozzy. And he's classically trained. So, like when I first started to play, I was learning classical music. So I had a taste. I really liked that flamenco kind of style, classical kind of Bach thing. And Randy really had that in his tone and his playing. And with Ozzy, he was fantastic. He was just like, I'd never heard anything like that in my life. I also liked Eddie Van Halen a lot. And then Yngwie came along, and there's my neoclassical guy, But, and then you just kind of grow into different tastes. And I'll tell you, out of all the guitarists that I listened to, one time at the time I was married to this gal, and she had this brother. He's a really cool guy, and he's like, hey, man, I bought you tickets to Joe Satriani. And I was like, wow, man. And in my heart, I was like, oh, really? Okay. Because I was like, I like Joe Satriani, but I'd never seen him live. So, and it's not that I was hating on him. I just wasn't, I didn't know enough about him. He was the most fantastic, flawless player I had ever seen in my life. And I used to read articles about guitar players that would, talk about him. And until you see him live, you really don't really realize what a fantastic guitar player he is. He is so clean and so precise, and he didn't make one mistake. And besides that, his tone was just unbelievable. So I'll tell you, out of rock guitar players, Joe is right up there with them guys, man. Joe Satriani is just unbelievable. And then, as I got, you like him a lot too? Yeah,
Satriani, yeah. I had that Surfing with the Alien album back in the day, and it just had some really cool stuff on it. It's all instrumental stuff. But, the thing about Satriani is when he was first starting to make a name for himself, he was also a guitar teacher, and he was the guitar teacher for Kirk Hammett from Metallica. He taught Steve Vai.
I know, out of all the guys who teach Steve Vai.
One of the guys from Testament as well, and Alex Skolnick, I believe it was. He was one of his students. And I believe there was Dweezil Zappa went to him for some further training, because Dweezil learned from his father, but then he went to Satriani for some further training. But
I got a funny story about him, Dweezil Zappa. One time I was at the McCormick place doing, it's called the Musicians, what is that called? You know, the NAMM show? The National Association of Music Merchants. Yeah. So I'm over there, and I'm like sitting at this booth, and I think he played Ibanez or something. And I was playing these guitars, man, and I was just jamming. I wasn't even paying attention to around me. And this guy kept coming up talking to me, hey, what's up, man? Hey, that's a cool lick, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I go, and I just happened to glance up, and here's Dweezil Zappa. We're hanging out and jamming. It was like, that was so fun. He was like super cool, man. He was like super nice too. It happened to me twice there, by the way. It happened to me twice there. So then I'm over at this other place jamming, and I about fell off my my stool because I was like, oh my God. I'm playing the guitar, you know, and somebody taps my shoulder. Hey, man, those are some nice licks there, dude. And I looked up, and he had kind of a funny accent. I look up, it's Neil Sean from Journey. I was like, oh, my God. That dude has been, like, with so many – oh, my God. He is such a fantastic guitar player and writer.
Yeah, and he can do all kinds of stuff. He's not just pop. I mean, he does the blues.
He started off really
metal.
young, too.
Yeah.
He was with Santana.
At 15, he was
like
with
17.
Santana.
Yeah, really young. It's crazy.
Now, we do have another comment here on Twitter from Verwayne Greenhoe. He says, I played the B-flat cornet in the concert and jazz band in high school and in college, and the tuba and marching band. I love the jazz band nights.
Oh, nice.
Cool.
No, I like jazz band, too, you know. There's some really cool – you know, it's funny – people ask you back in the shredder days on guitar, they're like, hey, man, who's the fastest shredder? Honestly, it's the horn players. The saxophone players like Bird and all them guys, man, those guys, if you want to talk about speedy notes, Yngwie who? John Petrucci, what? These guys are like flying, dude. I mean, that is no joke either. It's not even goofing around. Because I remember when I went to school, a lot of the jazz guys would talk about that, and then they would try to, like, you know, transcribe stuff. And I was like, man, that's way more work than I want to do. So yeah, he's dead on that. You gotta love that old swing stuff too. I love that stuff.
Well, how about we introduce the audience to one of your songs here?
That would be cool, man.
Okay, this one is called
Depends on which one
Ditty.
it is, but yeah, it would be cool.
This one's Little Ditty. So we'll play this and we'll come back and talk about it. That was cool.
Man, that brings back some serious memories.
Yeah, tell us about the song, the history. Where did this idea come from?
Man, so this song is a conglomerate of a bunch of different songs. So for, like when you're a doctor and stuff, you have to do a thesis. So we had to do like a piece like that and record it at school for music. And so I was stuck, and I didn't want to do a classical piece because I didn't feel like I could write something really, really cool that I wanted to, and I wanted to get a good grade and stuff. And the guy that played drums on that, his name's George Ford. He's still up in Minnesota there, Minneapolis, where I did that. And this was back in like 94, so we're putting this all together. And that guy on the drums, I first want to say, George Ford is fantastic. He did that in one take. That time signature in the middle is not easy to do. Like one take. We rehearsed it, obviously, but when we recorded it was one take because we were kind of in a hurry for our class project. It was me, George Ford, and there was our buddy Todd Fitzgerald, who's still up there, and I think it's Wonderland Studios or something. And he was the producer and the recording. That was part of his school project too. So we were putting that together, and we just kind of wrote the song, and I had all these like little riffs I wanted to do, and so we put it together. And I played the bass and played the guitar.
I was just going to ask you who played the bass. Okay, I see. That was you. All right.
That was me. That was me. Well, we had a guy that was going to do it, but there's a part in there, and it's not even hard. It's just it's very consistent. And there's a part where it's, like a little timing part. I think they had a problem with that. So I just said, I did Prince would do that. He'd come in there, and if he couldn't get a part, he'd be like, just give me the guitar. Okay, record that. I didn't pull that, but you know what I mean? Yeah. I had to because we didn't have any time for because our finals were coming up. We had to get that project done. But that song was that was a really fun song. And I got to tell you a story. So the guy that came in, he's one of Cliff Whitstruck. He's like a super jazz player. He plays all over the country, and he's like a really good guitar player. And he was kind of coming in and giving us pointers like, hey, man, do you like this? Or help me with tone. And through this recording, you can't really hear it. It came out really, really good. And Cliff was a big part of that. But Cliff is a funny guy. And when he comes, whenever I see him, he does studio sessions too, and he would play guitar. But when you're in a session, sometimes you can't hear yourself because you have your headphones on, and then you have like a guitar mic or whatever. A lot of times in a session when he played, he's a grunter. He's like, So there's this one whole session where he played on, and they had like a mic of him going, yeah. It's so funny. But yeah, that brought back that memory on that song. That song that was really fun to play. And George and all them guys, they're all still doing music, and it's really kind of.
So where'd the title come from? Little Ditty.
Oh, that was Cliff Whitstruck, that story I just told you about. He came in there, and he goes, wow, that's a cool little ditty. I was like, wow, I guess we have a name.
Cool.
Thanks, Cliff. Yeah.
All right, so before we move on here, Verwayne Greenholm, listening to the song, he said, loving that music. How's that line go? Play that funky music. Yeah, that definitely had kind of a funk vibe to it, which just sounded great. And he also came back with another tweet and said, you are listening to a couple of guys who love their music when it gets you excited just listening. Great stuff, Bert Krieger. All right.
Thanks, buddy. Yeah. It's kind of fun when you listen to that stuff. It's kind of like it's like looking at a picture. It's like a time capsule. It takes you back to that time.
You said you had recorded this in 94.
Yeah.
So, that's a ways back. Yeah.
A lot. I'm dating myself, dang it.
Now, you were getting ready to start talking about this earlier, and I pulled you back because I had this down here, and I wanted to wait till after the song. Now, talking about playing in bars, and you played, as you mentioned, with Wayward Storm. You had played when you were underage, and there was many years that you played while underage. Now, what kind of rules were involved, and was there like a designated area? Because I know a lot of those clubs, they're not likely to let underage kids in, but you're a different case. You're with the band.
Yeah, so they were really, a lot of times they were really cool about it. They would just say, hey, I don't want to see you out of this spot. And it's generally like a little room by the stage, or like they have a stock room. Sometimes it's a refrigerator. That was awesome. Or the kitchen. And so you couldn't leave out of that. And sometimes you get that, that angry guy is like, if I see you out of here and blah, blah, blah. And so there were some strict rules. And then, like, on stage, sometimes they wouldn't even let you bring drinks up to the stage. You know, like when people would buy you shots on the tray or whatever, they wouldn't even let you bring that up to the stage because I was underage up there. Because they were trying to be really careful. Because, you know, liquor license, I mean, that's their livelihood, and I understood that completely. But, yeah, no, I respected that. I just brought my own bottle. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
But, you know, for the most part, yeah, they were pretty strict about that. And then but it was really fun. It was a good experience. The one thing I would have to say, though, back then, man, I wish they had the smoking ban then because, boy, it was horrible. I remember just clouds of smoke. You didn't even have to smoke. I remember playing the clubs even at a young age.
I remember those. And I was a smoker back then myself, and I remember that, man. We used to be drinking and chain smoking at our table.
My God. That's crazy.
All these years later, I quit smoking 20-odd years ago. So, I mean, I smell it now, and it turns my stomach. People smoking.
I know. I'm just like the smoke Nazi, man. I hate it with a vengeance. Like, I'm like, man, you better be 25 foot from this door because I ain't even going to smell that. You know, I get mad.
Yeah, I was down in Michigan City, Indiana here a couple weeks ago. We went down there to one of the casinos, and you can still smoke in the casinos. And I'd be playing one of the slot machines, and somebody would sit down with that cigarette burning. I got to get up and move away. It's just,
Oh, I did too. And God, in the day, man, when you go into these bars and play, and if you were spectating, whatever, man, everybody was smoking. I mean, it was just packed, and they had like ventilators that didn't do anything but kind of fluff it around. It was horrible. But I remember there was some pretty fun experiences. Like, gosh, I was playing one bar one time, and I went up to go get a Coca-Cola, and this creepy old lady was like, "Hey, what are you doing? I want to give you a big hug," and all this stuff. It was just. So there was like a lot of crazy experiences like that. When you're a kid, you're like, oh, man, that's kind of crazy. That was kind of trippy, you know. It was fun, though. I made a lot of friends. And it's funny when you're the kid in the bar, a lot of times people, like, stick up for you and, hey, don't touch the kid or don't mess with the kid or whatever, you know. That was always good. Even the guys in the band. Yeah. So, yeah, that was a good experience with and Wayward Storm were like bigger brothers. They were like my old brothers, you know. And they would.
Yeah, I remember those guys. Those guys.
Oh God, those guys were.
I got to run the light show for you guys one night up at the Riverfront Saloon.
Yeah. Jimmy G.
Jimmy G. Yeah.
Hey, is that still down there? I don't
believe it is. I'm thinking it's been. I think the building might still be there, but maybe not. Actually, it might not even be there because they've changed that whole area. You know, they put the baseball stadium down there for the Lansing Lugnuts. Now listen, callers, or listeners, this is an opportunity to call in if you're a music fan. 516-453-9902. 516-453-9902. If you got a question or a comment, call in.
Or if you're just lonely and you want to hang out.
Yeah. I mean, you know, this is bringing back the 80s, man. There were some good times. Speaking of which, how about some of those road stories? You know, what's the pros and cons of being on the road?
There's a lot of pros and there's a lot of cons, but they're like self-inflicted cons. And I'm not going to be cliche and say, you know, talk about all the, you know, the girl stuff. I mean, to me, that's so cliche. It's like, oh yeah, that's, you know, no matter what spotlight or whatever kind of thing you're doing, there's just so many fun stuff that happened. Like we would travel down to Florida. And you just got treated really well. Like there would be a group of people at the bar or the clubs that you'd play, and they were your entertainment. Like they would take you places to go parasailing, to the beaches, show you Florida. Like in Key West, every day after we got done playing at the night, every morning they would wake up and come up to our room and go, "Hey man, let's go scuba diving or snorkeling." Or it was just a blast. So that's kind of a fun thing on it. But God, one time we were down in Tampa, Florida. And what I was doing is I was trying to book the band. The band at that time was Wreck Havoc, and we were booking in Florida because Florida is like this weird mecca for record. Now
to set just a second here. Now to set the scene, this is after you're of age now, and you're not the kid in the band anymore.
Oh yeah. So what happened before that though, like you were saying, like some of the road stories. Like I was in La Rouge band that. When I was telling you about that Silver Dollar, that's how I heard they were looking for a guitar player. So I went on tour with them guys. And I kind of learned the hard way with them because at that time I was a little bit older and I had done some little touring. And so now I was getting a little bit into the partying and all that other kind of stuff. And it was just, crazy stuff would happen on the road, like, crazy psychotic people, their girlfriends would, follow the band somewhere, and then all of a sudden this guy would show up with a knife or something. So that was kind of scary. But that was in the 80s. There was no social media. You couldn't, check up on people, I guess, and so it was kind of like that. But I mean, in Florida was like, that was the funnest state I think to ever go to because of the beaches and all the fun stuff down there. But yeah, so now I'll tell you though, if you're going to live that lifestyle, I see my older friends now, and a lot of them, I mean, I'll be honest with you, they're dead. They died. I mean, I know a lot of guys that were in this kind of stuff because they drink and they would party, and at the time it feels fun. You feel like, hey man, I'm on top of the world. Everybody's hanging out with us. I think I'm cool. So, a lot of the drinkers and stuff, those guys are really, they're down on the luck. They don't look so good or too hot about, nowadays. Thank God for Facebook, right? So,
yeah.
I learned at an early age, there was a couple nights I'd wake up, I'd party in, and my face would be in a box of pizza and, vomiting, and that was real cool. You know what I mean? That's not any fun, It was fun getting to that position. But
yeah, when you're young, though, I mean, you recover quicker, so you think you're invincible.
Yeah, but here's the truth of the matter. Once you get in that realm, though, as the drinker, or the alcoholic, or the person that parties a lot, that's not what you want, even at a young age, because in the music business, you're not taken serious then. You're you're kind of like, that's that guy, and people will work with you, but you'll never go beyond what you want to do. So I just learned that, like, towards the end of my touring days that, not really too bad, about the middle of my touring days, that drinking just wasn't where it was at, partying and all that stuff. Because I didn't get to practice enough. I wasn't exercising. I wasn't feeling good about a lot. And it's kind of like a downward spiral when you do stuff like that. I mean, like one time we were going to a house in Florida, and I couldn't enjoy in this moment when we get this house that this bar put together for us. It's supposed to be this really nice house. We go there, and the door's been kicked in. There's trash everywhere, like somebody squatted, and somebody crapped in the oven. So I would not have got to enjoy that moment had I not been sober.
With that,
but I mean, there was goofy stuff like that happens.
We've got a caller. You want to take the call?
Sure.
All right. Hello, caller. Welcome to the show. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Beam. This is Verwayne.
Hi, Verwayne. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, Verwayne.
Hey, how you doing? I love listening to you guys talk. Like I said, I was in the jazz band, and we had such a great time. I mainly played just brass instruments. I was trying to learn how to play the guitar. I was being taught, and then I got my fingers on my left hand all messed up, and I got them broke. And there went playing string instruments for me.
Yeah, there's just something
the brass
about
instruments are
music.
awesome.
Yeah, there's just something about making music. It doesn't matter what kind of music it is, but making music with other people, it's just a fun.
Or what
fun
fingers
thing.
you use for this matter.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but I played in high school and through 2-3 colleges. And just always had a blast, and I just love it when you guys are going. You can tell you're really into that stuff.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, man. Isn't it a great outlet, though? I mean, it's kind of one of those things that some people do models or puzzles or programming or something, but you get into music, and it's such a great release and a great getaway, for yourself. Even if you don't do it professionally, you just do it in the house. It's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, I was in what they call solo and ensemble in high school. In my senior year, there were 3 of us who did Bugler's Holiday, and we got straight 1s with it. We did that song,
yeah,
all triple tongue and all the way through it. Oh, I love that. Just a constant cascade. So, but jazz band.
So what's your favorite instrument there? I gotta ask. After your fingers got kind of hurt or broken, what became your favorite?
I fairly much stayed with the cornet. Everybody calls it a trumpet, but it was a B-flat cornet. And I had a nice, believe it or not, I paid a lot of money for it, but it was a sterling silver cornet. And that set me back in money, but I loved it.
My main question when you told me that, could you play some Chuck Mangione?
Chuck Mangione.
I wish I could right now, but I love everything Chuck Mangione. And,
yeah.
Herb Albert.
Chuck was the guy.
Herb Albert and
Herb
and
Albert
Al Hurt.
On the brass.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That's good to hear that, man.
I always.
You're gonna have to record some stuff and put them up out there online so everybody can hear you playing that stuff.
Well, what's that? My wife tells me, "You're getting old. Shut up."
You got one of those?
Well, she's a sweetheart. Yes, but yes, she does have a mind of her own. I will tell you that right now.
And how's she doing, Berwayne? Berwayne's wife is recovering from a brain tumor surgery.
Oh, goodness.
She was in the hospital for 37 days. She was in the hospital. She's doing much better. She's gradually becoming her same old sarcastic self, which is, the kind of thing that I love. We back-talked each other all, but the first time was 46 and a half years. And then my wife died in April of 2018. And I used to work with this girl back in the late 1990s, early 2000s. I was a day supervisor of the emergency room. And all the new nursing students, you had to come in and work a month with me. So, but after I left the hospital, I didn't hear from her until she happened to see. She worked there at Sparrow there in Lansing.
Yeah, no, I was born there actually in Sparrow Hospital, right there on.
And my little brother died there.
Oh, geez.
I've had multiple surgeries there myself. When I had my aortic aneurysm, that's where they fixed it. So, but she happened to be working, and she saw she happened to just see the obituary for my wife there in the hospital, or in a paper while she was working one night, and she sent me a text. On Facebook, and then it didn't go anywhere. And then she's going me, hey, how come you didn't get back with me? And then things just began to slowly take off, and eventually everything caught fire. And she's a lovely girl.
Well, congratulations on that. That's wonderful.
9 years younger than I am, but
she's feeling a lot better though. She's recovering real well.
Oh yes, she's got just an ever so slight of a slur left in her speech, and they said that's going away. She had a little bit of a problem with her balance there for a little bit, and she was a little dizzy because on and off, because that's where all the cerebral, or the sight is in the back. Your eye stuff is all in the back of your brain, and that's where this tumor was. And but things were really touch and go there for a little bit, but God's going, we need to give this guy a break. So, but she's back. Like I said, she's getting mouthy, and I love every second of it.
All right.
So,
well, thank you for calling in, Berwayne. We appreciate the call.
I appreciate what you guys do, and I love the talk.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yep, take care.
All right, bye, Brian.
Yep, bye.
Okay, we're going to throw a little bumper here. This is for our newsletter. Listen, if you're not subscribed to the Fresh Ink Group newsletter, you're missing out on a lot of really good information. It's not a long newsletter that's going to bog you down all morning trying to read it. It's just, it touches base on free books, new book trailers, and most importantly, the link to this program right here every Wednesday, so you can click on it, tune in, and check it out. So here's how you sign up if you're not signed up for the newsletter.
Stay on top of these podcasts and all things Fresh Ink Group with our weekly digital newsletter, new releases, videos, stories, excerpts, interviews, and more. Sign up now on the homepage of freshinkgroup.com and be the one who knows what's what.
All right. So before we switch gears and start talking about the book you're working on, one of three actually, you mentioned Randy Rhodes still being your favorite guitarist. He's my all-time favorite. Just an amazing player. I got to see him in concert live 6 weeks before he died. You saw him, didn't you?
Yeah, they were at the Lansing Civic Center.
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, you were at the same show I was, but we didn't go together.
The Diary of the Madman tour, it was.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. I still have my ticket stub, still have just, amazing memories of this guy being just mesmerizing up there playing. And then 6 weeks later, sitting at the breakfast table one morning, and my mom started reading this article about Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist was killed in a plane crash. And I was like, what? No.
Yeah. It was so surreal.
Yeah.
It was terrible. What a tragic accident,
Yeah, that's the way it is with a lot of them, that just died so young. But even the ones that didn't die young, that died old, Eddie Van Halen. He wasn't old; he was just in his 60s, and that was a shock too. We kind of
me too. Because I never really heard a lot of his ailments a lot. About his hip and stuff, but then all of a sudden it came out, he was battling with cancer, and that was a shocker, man. Randy, man, that was a real shocker. He was so young at that time,
25.
He only got to do a couple albums. I would have loved to have seen what he came up with, after the Ozzy experience. What kind of stuff would he have done? Like before he did the Quiet Riot stuff, but after that, the Ozzy was a little better produced. And it's funny. I was thinking of Randy the other day. I was at the Guitar Center. I was checking out guitars over there, and remember the old Flying V? He's got those old Jacksons. God, I remember being a kid seeing those, and they were like $2,200 or $300 or something. I was like, oh, I got to have one of those. They're like $300. I was like, oh my God, what a great deal. Yeah, so I might have to get one of those in my collection.
All right, so Never Signed. You've got some books that you're working on, and we're going to talk about just this one right now. We'll talk about the other ones a little bit later. Never Signed. What's this book about?
Well, Never Signed is kind of memoir of all my different stories, like how I first got my guitar and how I kind of worked my way up into getting into bar bands and then going into touring acts. And it talks about a little bit on the road, and it's not like like so musical, like all about the music. It's a lot of emotion in there, like waking up in the hotel room. I remember and just thinking to myself, and this is toward the end. Gosh, I've got money in the bank. I've got everything I need, but I'm living out of a hotel, man. Got no apartment, no car, no really an address. That's mine. And so it talks a little bit about that, how I got to that point. And a lot of it is just toward the end when it just the touring, when I got to the point where I just wanted to go to school. I got so tired of the mishmash, and because you got to think about it. You got 3 other, 4 other, 5 other, sometimes 6, 7 other people in the band, right? And to get 4 people to get thinking the same ideas and the same thing, the same thinking process, it's very difficult. Because one of them, even if one of them decides that that's not a good idea, that's one link in that chain that makes everything a lot less strong. And it's like, you look at different bands, and a lot of times people will be like, how did they get signed? And people are like, well, it's because who they know. And that's some of it. But a lot of it is that people really, you got to have a bond. You have to have, that band has to be together and go through thick and thin and think the same way. That is a very, very difficult task to get everybody on that same bridge, because when you're crossing over all this stuff, everybody's got to have that same thought process. What are our goals? Are we all on the same page? So I remember with Wreck Havoc, we were down in Florida and we're touring, and it was kind of fun, like we were on top of our game. And this is when I was sober for a while now, and I was like, man, this is really cool. I got my head clear. Let me remind you, there was no internet, there was no nothing. There was the phone, and there was your legs. That was basically all you had. And you had to have the gift of gab. You really had to start speaking with people, agents and all that other stuff. And that was this is kind of about that journey about me doing that. I remember being in Florida, and I would go to the clubs, because in Florida is like the mecca for bands and record companies. So I got this tour together. At the specific time, they were down there, and they were like showcasing their bands. And for some reason, it was Florida. I don't know why it was, but it was the Tampa area. So I just had our agent book us all around there for like 6-7 weeks or 8 weeks. I don't know. It was a pretty long time. And so we were just basically living there. It was really fun, man. We got to meet a lot of different people. So we were like at this hotel, right, in Tampa, and like all these bands were coming in from everybody. I mean, like all the Nova was there. We got to meet Phil X as his guitar player. At that time, they were doing the Blood on the Bricks tour. And that tour was really cool because the players in the band were really good. And it was just like, it wasn't Bon Jovi. He put a lot of the producing and helped write, and Richie Kotzen, or not Richie Kotzen, but Richie Sambora.
Sambora, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was those bands, and there was a band called Saigon Kicks that was in there and all that stuff. So it was kind of like a summer camp with all these cool bands from like all over the world. There was a band from Italy there, and they were called Zero, and they could speak no English at all. They were so funny. They would be coming to the hotel, and all we do is sit around and like jam on the guitar, and the guitar player was really, really good, and they were really good. They just couldn't speak any English, so we just kind of sat around and jammed all day and laughed and taught each other, bad words. And that was kind of like, it's kind of like that, where it was just a lot of the relationships that you would meet on the band that a lot of people don't really talk about, networking and having fun. And, a lot of books that I've read about that stuff, it's all about, we had this party and there was a goat and they exploded or whatever. It's just like, man,
yeah.
For me, it was a lot. I just wanted to be more of a real, it's kind of dark at the end, to be quite honest with you, because I walked away and just went to school because in the last part, I want to give away the end of the book or anything, but the last tour, we had everything really rolling, and I found a Warren Wyatt, who's this big manager guy, and he was doing the Lizard, Saigon Kicks. That's their album that went really, really big, and we were going to do the first leg of the tour with them. They had a #1 hit on MTV, with Love Is on the Way, and so we were right on the. We were right on the edge and ready to roll, and then, man, it just blows up, and that kind of talks about that too, because a lot of stories will tell you, and then now I'm just, all that fame and fortune, but I was just about there, and it got it kind of ripped away from me, and I think I had something to do with it, and I think everybody in the band had something to do with it. I wish I could have kept it together and helped out with it more, but it's kind of more of the emotional side and what you're going to go through and what to expect and stuff like that. They'll have some fun stories in there too, but that's really what that's about is, just me growing up and being a musician, why I liked it so much, my relationships that I got into, some drinking and what not to do, and then a lot of different, different clubs and funny stories in that too. But, it's not all about that. I wanted a real emotional part in there. I wanted to have a real, like the realistic part of it, And it doesn't have like this glorious, fantastic end. Although I love my life, and I have a lot of fun knowledge from that. But a lot of the stories, end out like Hollywood, like, oh my gosh, they're got this big house and still working on the royalties and all that stuff. It just doesn't work that way. So, and it was a fun era too. I think that era a lot of people don't know about. And it's
totally
an
different times.
Mhm. Very different era, and it was cool, man. Except for the hair.
Now, we're going to take a break, play a commercial here, but when we come out of there, we will talk about your missed opportunity with the keyboard player from the rock band Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So this is Legacy of Danger by Patricia A. Guthrie, available now on pre-sale on Amazon, so get over there and Barnes & Noble and wherever you buy your books from. Go over there. You'll find the pre-sale there. And grab it. Grab a copy of it. Reserve your copy today.
Elena Dacani inherits her family's castle in Romania, a land dipped in myths, folklore, and the legendary Walking Dead. The local proverb serves as a warning. Do not speak badly of the devil, because you cannot know to whom you will belong. When she's attacked by an international assassin, only her deceased husband and her ex-boyfriend's live presence can protect her on her journey to the mountainous region of Transylvania. But that's not the only problem troubling Elena. Who is that boy invading her dreams? And what really happened to a priceless gem-crusted silver cross buried by an earthquake in the 15th century? Who's stalking Elena? Who wants her dead and why? Legacy of Danger by Patricia A. Guthrie is a paranormal romantic thriller with a deep mystery and plenty of suspense. It'll haunt you in jacketed hardcover, softcover, and all ebook formats worldwide. Legacy of Danger by Patricia A. Guthrie is proudly published by Fresh Ink Group.
And you can go over to the Fresh Ink Group YouTube channel and see the video book trailer for that book as well. And while you're there, make sure you leave a like, a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel.
Actually, I want to copy that book. That was intriguing. I thought it started off kind of like cool, and they kind of went, and I was like, well, I'm kind of sucked into that. That's kind of fun.
Okay, now
you guys do some good stuff. I got to tell you that. I went through your catalog there. You guys got a lot of really good writers and a lot of cool stuff you got going on.
Oh, we do.
Just want to mention
got some fantastic writers. So, what's this deal with the keyboard player from Kansas and how you had a missed opportunity to do some recording?
Oh, yeah. So we're doing in Minneapolis. They have this. I think it's called Aquatennial Fest or something like that. It's like downtown, right? So there's like 8,000-9,000 people. And at the time, I was in a band called Hairball, which I think they're actually still out playing, and they're a national act that's kind of a cover band, spoof on the 80s or whatever. So we're playing downtown Aquatennial Fest, and and we're doing an opener for Kansas. And Dave Perner from Soul Asylum, he had a band. I don't remember what it was called, but they called it something else. And so we were doing like the opener for them guys, and we do sound check, and it's like all the original guys from Kansas. For some reason, they were on that tour doing that with the original guys. It was awesome, man. And we get done with our set, and I'm all like, oh, that was really fun, you know. I'm up there with all these people screaming and shouting, and then I get this, some guy tugs on my shirt, you know, and I'm looking over at him, and it's the keyboard player, it's the roadie it's one of his roadies, it's guitar, or not a guitar tech, but it's keyboard tech. And he's like, hey, man, I need to get your number because so-and-so, you know, wants to jam and do this stuff in the studio down in Iowa. We've got a studio and all this stuff. And I was like, cool, man. So I give him this number, right? And I didn't even think about it. I was like, in the heat of the moment, I was like, oh, okay, yeah, cool. And we get done, and about 3 weeks later, I just dawned on me, like, this guy, I was like, oh, man, I wonder why those guys were supposed to call me, and I was going to do some stuff with Kansas. Everybody was kind of eating it up, too, in the band. It was funny because they're like, what did they want? What did they do? And I was like, well, they just wanted me to, you know, do some stuff, you know. It was always funny like that. It's like almost like a jealous significant other, you know, like, what do they want? You know? But anyways, so I didn't even think about it. And then I lost my phone. I broke it. And I was like, man, I'm tired of this carrier anyways. And at the time, you really didn't switch your number. You just bought a new phone, a new number. And that's what I did. And then I realized that I was like, oh, that was my only contact with that dude to go down there and do some recording. And, man, that would have been a cool in. So that was one of my lost stories. And, you know, it's kind of like, man, I don't believe in luck. I believe in being prepared for a moment. I really wasn't prepared at that moment, was I? So anyways.
Yeah,
that kind of sucked.
Right.
That's what happened.
Now I'm going to throw this out here because Verwayne Greenhow has a question on Twitter. He says, where can I buy your books, Brooke? Verwayne, he's in the process of writing them, so they're not quite ready yet, but you'll know. We'll promote them, and we'll probably have Brooke back on again once one of the books comes out because he's working on 3 right now. But
you can actually go to brookkrieger.com or Guitar Brook, and those are they'll have my social media on there. But the brookkrieger.com is going to be the one that's got. I've got like not trailers, but like little snippets on there about that. So they'll be on there soon.
All right, cool. Yeah, keep the updates. Now, you mentioned some of these bands that you've gigged with and whatnot. Who were some of the bigger bands that you opened for over the years?
Gosh, so when we first started off, it was fun because classic rock was kind of making a big hit. It's like a big comeback. So like there was Steppenwolf, there was Alda Nova, Ted Nugent, Kansas, like all these bands were. It was really fun because that was like in the era of these like the guys that were like influencing the music that we were listening to. But not only that, they were really cool live too. And there was a band called Kicks. Do you remember those guys?
I remember. I got a couple of their albums. I've got them on my iPod, and I've got some of their CDs.
I'm telling you, those guys were so cool at the time, man. That singer, we did our set. We were playing actually Club Eastbrook with Kicks up there. And Club Eastbrook.
I remember that club.
Rapids.
Yeah.
I think they're still around. They might be, but I think they're.
I believe they
Anyways,
are.
it used to be this old, like an old movie theater house. They had these huge arc spotlights. It was just a really cool gig. And we got to do a show there. We did a Steppenwolf there too. But this was fun because we're in Kicks, or not. We're not in Kicks, but we're playing before Kicks. We're the opener and jamming out and stuff. And we look over and there's a singer, man. He's like stood the whole set, watched us play the whole set, and Wreck Happy. I was just like blown away by that. And at the end, he came up and gave us tips and pointers. And he was just a super, super, super guy, man. And sometimes you'd run across that, man. Some of those guys that you in these bands are like so helpful and give you tips and tricks and bow and arrow trips with Ted Nugent. Don't get him talking about bows and arrows. He can go on forever on that. You'll be late for your set. But the one of the bigger bands that we got to do a show with there at the Silver Dollar there in Lansing, Michigan, was Allison Chains, and that was like in '91. Man, that was like.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're huge now. But at the time, they were just kind of broke, and they were with
just
Van
getting
Halen.
started, yeah.
Oh, they were just getting started, but man, those guys were super cool, man. I used to hang out with Jerry
and
Cantrell.
I missed that show. I had something going on. I wasn't able to get there that night, and it's just like then I heard.
Dude, you're bumming, man. That was a great
band
show,
was opening,
man.
and I'm like, oh man. And I'm a huge Allison Chains fan.
Who isn't, man? Those guys are really good. I mean, they do cool acoustic songs too, so you don't have to be like in the metal and stuff. I mean, they do some really good stuff, and then the Mad Season stuff was. But I was gonna say those guys were really funny, man. Like they had this guy. Do you remember the old Cheetos commercial? That's what the sound guy looked like. Remember the Cheetos guy that had like the mustache back in the 60s or 70s and 80s?
Yeah, the Doritos
that was their sound guy, man. Yeah, the Doritos guy. Yeah. So that was their sound guy. That wasn't him, but he looked just like that. He would do funny stuff. He'd get up on stools and stand around and make people do stuff and. You know, like, hey, I'm the sound guy. Go move that bar stool over here. I can't hear something. Or he would just
his name was Avery Schreiber. Avery Schreiber. That was the actor that did the Doritos commercials back then.
I'm telling you, man, he has a doppelganger, man, because that's who that was.
I know this because I watched old reruns of the old Match Game 74, Match Game 75, and he was always one of the guest panelists on there, and that was when he was doing those commercials. But yeah.
Or Buzz TV. So, but those guys were really cool, and the fun thing about those guys is they were young too, and at the time we were like hungry, like literally we were hungry, starving, like we didn't have any food, and we were like in the back, we were just raiding the deli plate. Jerry Cantrell comes back in there. First, the roadie comes, the stage guy, the manager, comes back from Allison. He's just ripping us a new butt. He's just yelling at us, why are you doing that? This is our food and all this stuff. And Jerry and Sean, can you come back and go, hey, man, it's cool. Let them eat, because they knew we were hungry. So, and then we just kind of hung out with Sean and Jerry because those guys were, like, really chill and they were kind of mellow. And when we were hanging out, I'd play the guitar. That guitar he used, the Man in the Box. I always got to jam on that. And he's like, hey, man, what do you think of that? And he had, like, a Kaler. I don't know if you know what that is. So there's like a Floyd Rose, Miami Barn, and there's like a Kaler.
I remember the Kaler.
And I asked him, I said, why do you have that Kaler? And he goes, well, the Kaler just got a certain tone. So it was just fun. We got to talk shop. So, and a lot of those guys were like that, And sometimes you regret meeting your heroes. I'm not going to say anybody like that, but
well, no, I mean, I'll bring it out. Two of those guys from that gig are dead. The singer Lane Staley and Mike Starr, the bass player, because they were drug addicts. Lane Staley became incapacitated as a heroin addict, a severe junkie, and he died, and he laid dead on his sofa in his condo for 2 weeks before somebody realized that, hey, he hasn't taken any money out of his bank to buy drugs. Something must be wrong. And they found him dead, and, it's a sad story. And years later,
let me tell you the story about before you go with the Mike Starr thing. The reason why Lane Staley was the way he was, a lot of people don't really realize this, but he had a gal that he loved, really loved. Yeah. And they were going to get married, and she also was a drug addict. She was a heroin
addict.
And yep, so she was doing drugs, and her heart got inflamed, and she died. And that he just never recovered from that. It was terrible. And it was like, so every song, like on Mad Season, am I saying that right? Is it Mad Season?
Yeah, I've got that. I've got that on my iPod as well. Great album.
Oh, it's an awesome one. But if you listen to the lyrics, they're all about her.
Yeah.
All about, because I had read up on that after that, because that was really sad. Because Lane, he was a really cool dude, man. He was like just really chill. And
great vocalist.
You got to really watch it. Yeah, he's a great vocalist. But it's like what I said before, though. Like, you can get trapped up in that, and those guys got trapped up in it. And they were like, they got to a big time. So when you go into big time, then it's like everything's kind of handed to you. So, you know what I mean? Like all the drugs, it's really easy accessible. And it gets really dangerous. And unfortunately, he did that to himself on that. That's too bad. Those guys were awesome. I still love Jerry Cantrell, though. He's a really good guitar player, good songwriter, and I still like Allison Chains.
They're back. They're back out there. They've got they broke up after that for the better part of a decade, but they reformed. They got another guy, William Duvall. This guy, he sounds a lot like, he can do that old Lane Staley stuff, but he's got his own sound too for their new stuff, because they've got, I think, 3 albums with him.
Check Your Brain.
Check Your Brain.
Check Your Brain. That's my song. I love that song.
That's a great album. I've got that. All right, so
and then Mike Starr, everybody saw him on, what was that, Celebrity
Rehab.
Yeah, whatever. He's on there and he talks about it, and Mike Starr was, he was in that band too, but he died later.
Yeah,
a lot
Mike
later.
Starr, his deal was, he was there the night that Lane Staley died, and he didn't call an ambulance. He knew that Lane was sick. He left him there, and then Lane died. And he carried that with him for a long time. And that episode of Celebrity Rehab, when he was on there, you could tell this guy was not long for this world. He was really troubled by this. And they had Lane Staley's mother came in when it was family night. Rather than having somebody from his own family come in, he invited her, and he told her, look, I was there the night that he died. And he carried this feeling he was responsible because he should have called an ambulance, but Lane had told him, if you call an ambulance, I'm not talking to you ever again. So he walked off and didn't. He said he should have just sucked it up and called an ambulance anyway. But as Lane's mother was saying, they knew he was going to die. They already knew this. He was so far gone.
He lost a lot of weight. Yeah, he
was down to 80 pounds. And this guy's 5'8", 5'9", and he was down to 80 pounds, and he was disconnected from everybody. But his mom didn't blame him. But Mike Starr still had that issue. And a few years later, he actually died. It wasn't of a drug overdose. It was a drug combination. He had taken a couple of different prescription pills, and it had an interaction, and it ended up killing him. But anyway, so we're going to move on.
Enough of that dark stuff, man.
That's just the cautionary tale,
Yeah, no, for sure. That's what I would tell people right away. Like, you can love the music, you can love it without the drugs and without that.
Yeah,
you can love the music. You really can.
The thing is, these guys, they were successful. Hugely successful, and it just shows you they had it all. But there was still that depression, the misery there, and there were so many of those, especially those Seattle bands in the 90s. We come out of the 80s where it was always a good time, having a good time and partying and girls and all this stuff, and then we go into the
all those guys
90s.
Died later because they ruined their livers.
A lot of them died later. But during the 90s, how many of those guys died during the 90s and then later? But their music, a lot of it was depressing. The whole scene was depressing. They didn't want to be tied in with those 80s bands, and But
it was a different genre, and it was respectable. I think Kurt Cobain was a really good songwriter. A guy from South, Chris Cornell was really good. Allison Chains. There were some really good bands that came out of that era, and that's too bad. But yeah, you're right. like the '80s guys. Janie Lane. Here's the guy I remember watching them back in the '80s, and I was like, wow, man, this guy's cool. I want to look like him. He's super, like this cool dude, And then you saw him later, and not to shame him or anything, but it was like, oh my goodness, what happened, And it was the alcohol, the alcohol,
drugs and
makes
alcohol,
you look a certain way. And you could just,
he died in a
here's
hotel room.
The funny thing is, you go to Facebook and you look up your old friends, and it's kind of crazy because you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? No, I'm not going to say which friends, but and you can just tell that some, they're affected by that. But
yeah.
I've seen a couple of my really good friends, they passed on. I was like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. It's just really, it's crazy. And I dodged some bullets because some of my ex-girlfriends were on there, and I was like, wow, am I glad I missed that? I'm kidding.
All right.
That's a bust I'm glad I didn't catch.
We're going to drop another one of your songs in here before we run out of time. Sure. But we're going to do a number called Catch 22. This is from your band De Facto Policy. So once we come out of this, we can talk about that. So
sounds good, man.
That one jammed.
Oh,
this is one that I listen to often when I'm out pushing the lawnmower around the yard. I listen to music the whole time when I'm out there. It's a 3-hour job, so I go through a lot of music. That's one of them, man. That whole De Facto Policy album was just a rocker right there. So
that was
this come from?
That was a really fun album, man. I had gotten off all the touring and Hairball and all that other fun stuff and Hairball, but you know, like all these touring acts and bands and stuff. And I became an IT director for a school, and it was a music school, so it was kind of cool. I was like doing the computer stuff at the school. It's called IPR. It's there in Minneapolis. It's still up and running. And I taught classes on computer maintenance, and this guy came in, and that was Todd Douglas is his name. And the guy came in, he was like, man, I write songs, man, and I hear you guitar, and I want to hang out with you, and I hear you play with students, because some of the teachers would, jam with the students and stuff, and I was like, man, I'm all about that, because I can learn. Actually, jamming with people, I can learn, and I learned a lot from Todd Douglas. He was like a fantastic songwriter. Just listen to his lyrics. He's just unbelievable. Not his lyrics, but his lyrics are good, but his vocals are just unreal.
Yeah, great vocals.
Like, he's a really super great singer, man. He's a great lyricist, and he's just an all-around really good guy, good songwriter. And we really malted together. And it was funny because he did like a folk jazzy kind of thing. If you heard his earlier stuff, it sounds nothing like that. And for me, it was kind of it was not along my lines, but I really enjoyed it. It was like really fun. And we had a guy do our album. His name's Dick Shopto. They're in Minneapolis, and he's like this super bass player, super dude. His whole house at his basement, he's got this super studio where he does Pro Tools, and he's a great producer and a great mixer, and he can track. He's just a really all around just recording monster. And we hired him to do the de facto policy, because when we were doing that album, we were in Minneapolis, and there's a lot of studios. In the school, like I said, was a music school. So we got to jam in all these different studios. There was a place called Metro Studios, and Christina Aguilera actually recorded there before, and a bunch of other really top, of course, everybody in Minneapolis knows Prince, and he played in their basement or whatever. But, yeah, he did play there too. So, in Master Mix Studios. So we got to actually use a really nice mic on some of the songs that Christina Aguilera actually used. It's a Sony. It's like $9,000 Sony mic, and it was really fun. We had access to a lot of fun toys during that. So the album was a little bit experimental, because we got to use a Trident board. We got to use an SSL. Those are our sound mixing board. And different types of monitors and mics, and it was just really a blast. And then we got the mishmash of all the songs together. It took a long time. I'm not gonna lie, because it wasn't our gig to where every weekend we were doing it, and he had his thing and I had my thing, and we just kind of got together on we were weekend warriors on this one. So it took a few years to put it together, but we got a mishmash on a hard drive of all that stuff. We recorded it all in Pro Tools, and we took it to Dick Shopto, and we said, hey man, can you mix this for us? Now Dick he's in a higher echelon, man. That guy, he doesn't goof around, man. He's the real deal. And if you listen to this whole album, this CD, man, he did a fantastic job on it all. And I just have to shout that out to producers, because there's a lot of bands that want to go, hey man, I'd like to do music, and we don't need that producer. A producer will make you or will break you. And I can name numerous bands that their first album had a great producer, and then they said, we don't need a producer, and then their second albums were horrible. But that's what I learned with this one. This was like, oh yeah, I mean, I can name hundreds of them. I mean, and it's just, you don't want to spend the money or whatever. But with Dick, it was well worth every dime that we spent with that, every nickel, penny, every dollar we spent with that. That guy was awesome. I can't say enough, because he's not only a producer, doesn't only just sit back by the board. He coaches you. Do this instead. Try that. Maybe check this out. And then on top of that, he played bass a lot on a lot of the songs. So for writers,
it's like an editor. It's another set of eyes that's going to go through your work and see where it can be made better, and what needs to be eliminated, what needs to be corrected. That's what a producer does. I mean, and just like you wouldn't be a writer without using an editor.
I'll give you a good for instance. So Slipknot, on their Volume 3 Subliminal Messages, or whatever that is, I think that's what it's called. That album was produced really, really well. That is a really good produced album. But if you listen to some of the earlier stuff, it's good, but you can tell a difference. The guitars sound a little different. The drums sound a little bit different, But that album is like, man, they brought in a good producer. I don't remember who did that one, but it's really super good. Now, some bands are very strange, though. Like Dream Theater, to me, they don't really have a bad album, but they have different producers, man. Those guys are just like fantastic. But yeah, back to the producer thing, man. Yeah, Dick Shopto is like, he was the man. So it took a while to get it done. We got it pressed and mixed, and then we shot it out there and put it on Reverb Nation, and we won like on the front page. I won one with the Little Ditty song too. Actually, I submitted it, and I got to go on the featured page or whatever. They got like a featured front page. And then on like 3 of the songs from the De Facto Policy album got picked. We got on the front page. So we got a lot of hits on that. A lot of people download the music. And if you want to download any of these songs, go to brookkrieger.com. That's BROOKKRIEGER.com. And all of them are free. You can download Little Ditty or Catch 22, I think, is on there. Goodbye and some other stuff. Wise on there.
Yeah, Wayne Greenhill, he during the song he tweeted, "Good stuff, Maynard, love it." So now we're gonna throw another song here because we've only got about 8 minutes left before we're out of time. Before the studio manager comes in and throws us out. We're gonna do this song called "Too Many Freaks." We'll throw this out here and.
This is the Wreck Havoc one.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit about this when we get out of there before we wrap things up. Too Many Freaks.
Sounds good.
All right, Too Many Freaks. That's Wreck Havoc. That encapsulates that 80s era, man. That's what I love about it. It's got all that stuff in there that I loved about that era, the music. Great vocals.
Yeah, that one was back in when I was telling you about how we were down in Florida and we were doing the demo.
Yeah, it was recorded in the 90s, but it's got that 80s. That's that 80s sound. You weren't doing grunge there.
No, for sure. Well, we were, that was out of 80s cover bands. Wreck Havoc was the one that, we toured Florida a lot. We were going to get assigned to the Third Stone Atlantic Records with Saigon Kicks and do the first leg of the Lizard Tour. And that song right there was actually one of the songs from the demo. And so that demo, there's like 4 songs on it. And we had our live guy mix it, and he did a pretty good job. His name's Johnny Bissell. And that singer, man, he's incredible. His name's Kelly Jones, man, and he was like one of the really good singers at the time. And he was like, when we found him, it was awesome because he was one of the guys that were playing around town, and we were like, God, if we could get Kelly, it'd be cool, man. And we got Kelly, and it was cool. So definitely. And there was another guy named Lee Bouchard on the bass, and then there was a guy named Steve Castleberry that played the drums. I just wanted to give a shout out to him.
Well, yeah, that's some good stuff there. Now, we've only got a couple minutes left, so let's let listeners know where they can, once again, where they can find your music.
Sure. So you could go to reverbnation.com/BROOK, KRIEGER. That's where all the music's at, and that's where the music's posted. It's also posted on my website. You can go to Brooke Krieger, BROOKKRIEGER.com, and all the songs are free download. And you can go to my guitar page, which is Guitar Brooke, and Brooke is spelled BROOK, guitarbrooke.com.
All right. Where can they find you on social media?
There'll be links on all that, too, so you can find me on Twitter, Facebook. There was a gal, believe it or not, a young, influencer. Her name's Brooke Krieger, and she spells it exactly like mine, so she took up some of the social media. So I've got, if you just go to those websites, you can click on the social media, it'll take you right to there. So because I got Brooke Krieger 69, and I've got, and not weird or nothing, it's the year I was born, and then I've got another Guitar Brooke original or whatever, because believe it, nowadays everybody's on social media, so they're taking up all their names. Yeah. So just go to the websites and find that on there. And then if you want to hit me up on Facebook, let's be friends. It'll be fun. And I could announce my books and stuff. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I have to go back now because we got to announce the scandal in Ukraine because that story is unbelievably fun.
Yeah. We ran out of time tonight, but I'm definitely going to have you back in. So now we've got about 90 seconds. So listeners, next week our guest is Jay Ajlouni. He is a writer and a playwright and just an all-around talented guy. And the week after that is the one and only Patricia A. Guthrie coming in to talk about Legacy of Danger. So if you miss an episode, you can find us in the archives, and this is how.
If you miss a show, find us in the archives in the Fresh Ink Group channel on YouTube, on Spotify, or under the podcast tab at freshinkgroup.com, beamweeks.com, and stephengs.com. On YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe.
All right, Brooke, I want to say thank you very much for taking time out of your Wednesday and stopping by and talking with us. Anytime, my brother. That's cool, man. It was a fun time. I enjoyed it. All right. Listeners, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Verwayne, for calling and being that, and Dr. Helen Burrell for being the voices out there on Twitter tonight. And we will see you again next week, everybody.
You've been a part of Voice of Indie, a production of Fresh Ink Group. Spread the word, support our guests, then find us at freshinkgroup.com and be sure to hashtag Fresh Ink Group.